Hey everybody, welcome to episode 7 of FranFunnel Live. It's been a few weeks. We were at the IFA convention since we did one, but I got our CTO here, Kevin Dolan, back, and today I want to talk about apps. App is a word you probably hear all the time about all sorts of different things, and kind of want to put a little clarity about it, how we do it, and then talk a little bit about kind of what the advantages are. So, Kevin, the first thing I'll say is, okay, what does it mean for something to be an app? I know it sounds obvious, you find it in the App Store, but from a technical perspective, what's actually going on there?
Well, the term app is actually a little bit more amorphous than you might think.
Okay.
Really, it just is short for application, and it means any program that really has like a rich user interface of some kind. So there are web apps, there are native mobile apps, and these might live in different platforms, but they all kind of encompass this general sense of usability that we've now come to associate with apps. There's no formal definition or anything. That's just sort of like the way it's been used in marketing parlance.
So when me and my friends say the word app, we mean native mobile app.
Yeah, typically you mean native mobile apps. So that's going to be something that's either written specifically for the Apple iOS platform or the Android platform. Sometimes it's going to refer to other phones' native platforms. But again, it can also be a web interface as well, as long as it's sufficiently rich.
So talking about iOS and Android specifically, when you decide to make an app, when you decide to code one, or in our case, turn our software into an app, what kind of advantages do you get? Like, what does it mean other than the fact you find it in the App Store?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the web is actually catching up in terms of the different features and APIs that are available as a platform. Things that Chrome is introducing and certain standards that are coming into existence are getting to the point where the line between them is actually becoming more and more blurred. But traditionally, when you were writing for a native platform, you did have available a greater set of APIs. So you could use things like the phone's camera, you can use location data, and you could use just sort of like a richer set of graphical primitives so that you could create richer user interfaces. But again, the line is blurring in terms of what you can actually accomplish.
So how do we do it? When I showed up at y'all's desk, 9 months ago, 12 months ago, and I was like, I want to be a native mobile app. What does that mean? How do we change the code base? Functionally, how do we do it?
Well, generally, when you're going into the native world, you're going to have to write something that is completely different from what you have on the web. You're going to have to use different programming languages, different tools, different structures to build things. What this meant traditionally was on Android, you were writing in Java, and on iOS, you were using a programming language that Apple invented called Objective-C. These are programming languages that we don't use for any of our websites, but we would use specifically for those. In the recent years, people have been developing a number of software frameworks and packages that allow you to use different tools, tools that are more commonly used on the web. But again, because it is sort of fundamentally different from building a website, you need to architect it a certain way. And so what we do for FranFunnel is we use a tool called React Native. React Native came out of Facebook and basically allows you to use JavaScript and the React framework, which is typically for web, to make real native apps that use actual native components. And so that allows us to build a rich user interface that can actually share code between the web and the mobile platforms, and can share code between Android and iOS. Inevitably, all three platforms are going to require certain changes to make sure it works perfectly on all of them, but you can share a lot of the business logic within these JavaScript modules.
Yeah, these are things that I get to learn over the course of the last year. Pretty cool. Last question about this. I mean, obviously, you're mentioning kind of an interesting time in app development where web dev and app dev seem to be converging. The experiences aren't that different at this point. So when you look at the future of FranFunnel, we'll say, obviously we have this new interface which is coming very shortly, but just like where we think the platform is going to move, tell me about what's going to happen and how you actually see it going down.
Well, in the immediate near future, we've written the new Cadence version of FranFunnel, which is the new user interface. That's basically going to be running React Native. So we will build separate versions for the web for Android and iOS. That will be largely similar, but they'll have some differences, and we'll have to build 3 different versions. I think that as time goes on, in the order of like 5 years, you're going to see even more convergence, to the point where you might actually be distributing apps over the web, and the native tools like Objective-C and Java will no longer be the norm, but rather something like JavaScript will become the norm.
Interesting. And, you know, we'll just keep working on whatever our objectives are in FranFunnel within these frameworks that seem to be converging and deconverging. And this is what we do around here. Well, thank you, Mr. Dolan. Yeah, I mean, we're very excited, as Kevin alluded to, working on a new version of the front end, which internally we're calling Cadence, and is certainly thinking about the app world. Very important for what's going on in your phone, be it if you're accessing it from a native perspective or from the web. But thanks very much for tuning in for episode 7, and we'll see you again shortly. Thank you, sir.
Thanks for having me.